When you were younger, when you were growing up, did you ever hear like, oh, you're pretty for dark skin, or you would be prettier if you were light skin?
Yes.
And how did you like navigate that? How did that like make you feel looking back on it now?
Looking back on it, it's real cringy because it's like, it really made me mad, but I never expressed it. I took it for a compliment. It was like, oh, cool, thank you. I am pretty for a black girl. And then when I got more into college, it was like, I'm just pretty because I'm pretty. Black has nothing to do with it. And it really, I take it as an insult now because even now at 24, I still get, you're pretty for a black girl. Oh, you know, your complexion is really pretty for a dark skin. Like,
still to this age, it's crazy.
To this day, random people in Walmart, oh my gosh, I've never seen a black person with such good complexion. And it's like, I don't know you,
Yeah.
stranger, but I don't like that, and it is very frustrating. So
you
now,
ever told that you were pretty for a dark skin, or that you would be more beautiful if you were light skinned?
Actually, we had a double dose of it. We were, some cute little dark skinned kids, and they're so well dressed. That was terrible. That was like, woo. It was terrible.
And so was it? I guess like in dating and stuff like that. Was there ever a man who said like, "Oh, you're pretty for a dark skin. Like I would get with you if you were light skinned."
What's funny is, in growing up, I was beautiful. I was pretty, but not pretty enough for them to date me. However, in my latter years, I'm the ones that said, "Oh, you're too dark." Girl, they in my inbox, my DM, calling me on the phone with your pretty chocolate self. I've always been chocolate. Why did you just not notice me?
How have the tables have turned?
Oh my goodness.
When it's like growing up, and nowadays, now in this age, in these years, they want to be like, oh yeah, you're so pretty. Oh yeah, chocolate this, chocolate that. But a couple of years ago, when I was younger, you wouldn't even look at me.
It's like I had to work extra hard to be noticed by guys. It seemed like that way, but on the outside looking back, from years, it's like, girl, you at the gym. You the one that they want. Chocolate don't crack, child. I'm way over 50.
Right.
And I ain't cracked.
Sure haven't. Black don't crack.
It don't crack.
Right. And so when you were younger, or even when you're older in your teenage years, were you ever told you were pretty for dark skin, or you would be cuter if you were light skin?
I never ever had anybody actually say that to me. I know that sounds crazy, but I didn't. But my sister, who's 6 years younger, I always thought she was prettier because she was light skinned. Her hair to me was prettier than mine. I thought her skin was prettier than mine. Now she, on the other hand, because we've had this conversation, she thought I was more beautiful. She said because I was always smiling. She had suffered with acne. I never have. So her comparison was, there's things that I don't like about myself because I see my sister in a different light.
And so growing up, did you ever feel jealous of her? Did you all ever have fights and like talk about skin color, or was it just something you observed growing up?
It was just something I observed. Believe it or not, I've only had one argument with my sister in my entire lifetime, and we were adults.
And were you ever told that you were pretty for a dark skin when you were younger, or when you got older?
When I was younger, I used to get those comments all the time. You're very pretty for a dark-skinned girl. But as I've gotten older, in my 30s and early 40s and so on and so forth, then I started getting other compliments, such as, you're very pretty, without the dark skin connotation.
Yeah, so how did that make you feel when you were younger? Would you say something back? Would you be like, no, I'm just pretty because I'm pretty? How did you...
I didn't respond.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't respond. Growing up in New York, it was just in my mind, it was a wonderful thing for me to even be considered to be pretty. And for someone to add, you're pretty for dark skin, it really didn't matter to me then because I didn't understand.
But now looking back on it, you can see how it could have been negative or something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Were you ever told that you were pretty for dark skin when you were younger, or even in your teenage years, or even now?
That was something that I heard a couple of times. I'd say more so my daughter, because she's a little even darker than I am. I had people say about her that, she's pretty for a little dark skin, a little chocolate girl. So I was, I guess, fighting that battle for me and for hers. But that is something that I've heard before.
And did it make you feel any other type of way, or did you just feel like I'm pretty? Were you like, did you ever fight back, or you just like took it as a compliment? And
I guess I kind of just took it as, you know, people will be people, and they don't determine who I am. I know who I am, and so it really didn't faze me. I think it bothered me more when they would say it about my daughter, because I wasn't sure how that would affect her. And so my battle was more so of making sure that she was comfortable in her skin and being okay with being a dark-skinned female. Because for me, I'd gotten to the point where I was okay with it, but I know that as children grow up, children can be cruel and evil. So I wanted to fight that battle and make sure that she was okay with knowing that she was beautiful regardless of her skin color.
were you ever told you were pretty for dark skin?
Yes, growing up, I did hear that. I had, for one, you know, I was the only girl on both sides of my family, my mother and my father's side. I had two younger siblings, but younger sisters that they grew up with me, but they were like 10 years apart from me. And so, you know, for a long time, you know, like I was by myself. And not only that, my dad, he was dark skinned. My mother, she was very fair skinned. And I didn't look like her. And it was like kind of strange, because it was like all of my other siblings, they all had lighter skin, and I had the dark skin. And I remember my cousins would call me Black Charcoal. They would call me, you know, like, you're Blackie. They'll call me Blackie, or, you know, like, you're a tar baby, you know, different things like that. And then I remember in high school, one particular guy said, you know, you're very cute. You know, I would date you if I was into dark skin. You know, I was like, wow, you know. And then, like, in, you know, just even verbatim, like, you know, you're pretty for a dark skinned woman. And I actually, you know, at the time when I received that compliment, I received it like a compliment, like, oh, you know, like, I must be pretty, you know, because he was a popular guy in school. And so when I look back on that, I'm like, wow, you know, like, that wasn't a compliment at all. Like, that wasn't anything, you know, beneficial for me to see it, that, like, oh, like, I need to take off the dark skin, or dark skin is like almost like a contradicting thing, you know, but I'm beautiful, period, you know, so that's where I see myself to be in.
And were you ever told you were pretty for dark skin?
Not in those particular words, but I've heard other people say you're a pretty dark-skinned person or girl. I've never been told you're pretty for a dark-skinned person. No, I've never been told that. But I have been said, you know, I have had the words portrayed, you're beautiful, dark-skinned girl. And so I would say thank you. But for years, I didn't think I was beautiful. People would give me compliments because of the color of my skin, and I was like, yeah, okay, you know, stuff like that. But no, I've never been told that I was beautiful for a dark-skinned person. But I still think the meaning is the same.
How did you feel about that?
I felt intimidated. I felt angry and mad, because if a person would come up to me today and say, you're beautiful for a dark-skinned person, I would look at them like they're crazy. I think that's the awfulest thing anyone could tell any person, whether it's no matter what your color or your nationality is. For me to say you're beautiful for a dark-skinned man, that's like me saying, okay, if you wasn't black, you'd be ugly. And that's not fair.
Right.
You're beautiful no matter what you are. Words are really hurting, and people don't realize what they say to people to tear them down.
Yeah.
Were you ever told that you were pretty for dark skin?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
And how did that make you feel? Or did you take it as a compliment? You brushed it off?
Well, again, I was in like white society, so for them to say that I was a pretty dark-skinned girl, or a pretty little black girl. I wanted to be more than that. I didn't want to just be that pretty little black girl. It even got to a point where I was made like I was a doll or something on a shelf, that I was supposed to be looked at and not heard, or I was supposed to be looked at and not adventured.
Like, what are some ways that you practice self-love, or you were able to really be like one within yourself?
I like tattoos. I like piercings. I like to dye my hair. That stuff really made me. For a while, it was more like a mask.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, kind of like rebelling. Like, I'm not gonna be that dark skinned girl that has the long straight hair and the white teeth. I'm not gonna look like what I've been trying to look like. So it was like rebellion. Then it became more of, I just like it for myself. I like to dye my hair. I like to have piercings. So if I have the money, I had self tattoos. You know, I mean, tattooed up. But outside of the more expensive stuff, I like to go to the gym. That's like, might be weird if I go to the gym.
So what are some ways you practice self-love since you knew you were already beautiful?
Yes. My family, we were taught at home, we were validated at home that we were beautiful. We just knew it. It was, when we left out the door, I didn't know that being called Tar Baby or Black Gal or Blackie or Hershey or one of the funny ones, girl, you black as tar. I didn't know that was derogatory. I didn't know, because I knew I was beautiful. So mom and dad validated us.
And so speaking about that with your childhood, going in that, knowing that you were validated and you didn't feel that, you necessarily didn't have the pressures of society, or did you still feel that when you went out in society because you were valued at home?
Because when I were out with my peers, I knew they were talking about me, but because I had a lot of self-esteem, it didn't bother me. It did, but you didn't know it bothered me. I mean, I went home and cried, Mom, why they calling me that? Why I gotta be all that? You know, because I was cute, girl. That's Coca-Cola bottle, you didn't tell me. So when people would talk about me, I would say, well, I have straight teeth. Your teeth are crooked and yellow. My teeth are white and beautiful.
Yes.
And curves. So it's like, when they talked about my imperfections, I immediately found something that was imperfected, that was different from what I had. I had the curvy shape. I said, you ain't got what I got.
Yeah.
So
you was letting them know.
But you know, as a Christian growing up, you shouldn't tit for tat.
Yeah, like retaliate.
But I use humor, and I would point out their imperfections to get them off of me.
Yes.
You didn't even talk about me.
Right.
That's just all right.
Right. Were you ever so how were you able to practice self-love as a child and even now?
I think one thing, sometimes what happens to us, like you said, when we look at too much TV, too much feeding of the media, I like to read and I like to write. So because of that, I was able to read from different authors. I never really read anything negative. I didn't receive a lot of negativity. I always had a positive outlook. I wasn't fed a lot of negativity, and I wasn't around that a lot. I think growing up in Cincinnati, where it was the first place where interracial marriages coming from the South could come together and co-mingle, because there's so much of a blend of mixed race there. I never paid attention to that. But what I do believe is that because I didn't look at a lot of TV, and because I wasn't reading magazines and things like that, I read Ebony, I read Jet, I read Essence. So those, I was able to get a more positive image because I was reading those things.
That's true. So the way that you practice self-love is with affirmations. And have you done that your whole entire life, or did you just start doing that like a couple years ago?
I started doing that when I was 20.
Oh, okay. So you've been doing it for a while. What got you into doing affirmations?
A lot of low self-esteem. So it wasn't just the skin color, it was maybe the hair texture. So I would perm my hair so my hair could be straight, you know, or I would, if I don't feel good enough or feel worthy enough, I would just kind of affirm myself in that matter.
Okay, and then affirmations helped with you.
That would
with
boost your
self-love.
confidence, because the more you say something, the more it gets in your spirit, the more it becomes your truth, and then after that, you know, you can tell me something else. I can tell you that's not true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I had already wrote it. I spoke
I've
it, and
already
it's
written
everything.
it, I've already spoken it.
Mhm.
God has already, you know, given it to me. It's already embedded in my spirit. So I am beautiful.
Yeah,
You know, God's light shines through me. My skin is popping, you know.
Yes. Is there any other ways that you practice self-love besides affirmations, or?
So I take a lot of me time.
Mhm.
I take a lot of time meditating. I take a lot of time praying. I take a lot of time, because I am a believer, so I take a lot of time reading scriptures. I take a lot of time just talking to God on a constant basis. I stay away from negative people. I stay away from negative comments. And anything that will try to darken my day, I absolutely stay away from. Anybody that comes at my way with negativity, you have to stop it right then and there, because it will get in your spirit. And that will conflict with what you've already affirmed yourself to be.
Yes, so the word that comes to my mind is protecting your peace.
Yeah,
that
you
phrase,
have
protecting
to.
your peace.
You have to.
And with that self-love and making sure that nothing negative comes through, because you already spoke your affirmations, you already prayed to God, you already know God got you, and you can't have none of that else in your life.
I journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a journal that just is grateful. So every day I write in it what I'm grateful for. At least 5 things in the morning and 5 things at night. I am grateful for this, that, and the other. I'm grateful for that. So every day I tell God how grateful I am. Every day I tell me how grateful I am for anything that I could have done better than I did the day before.
Okay, yeah, that is.
Yeah, you have to remain grateful.
That is really great. That's great. 5 things. 5 things.
5 things. 5 things in the morning, 5 things at night.
Yes. Okay. So I guess, how do you navigate in this spaces, knowing now that you're like, I'm beautiful, I have the self-love, I have the self-worth and things like that? Has that, it boosted up your confidence? Are you more out there in a sense, like you put yourself more out there, or is it just the same as even when you were growing up, even though you didn't have that self-love that you speak of having now?
I put myself out there in terms of speaking to other young ladies who may have experienced or may be experiencing some of the things that I've experienced as a child. Low self-esteem, no self-worth, and I didn't have anyone to tell me that I was beautiful or anything like that when I was growing up. So I try to make it a point to let every young lady know that they are beautiful, and don't let anyone else tell them anything different.
So what were some ways that you practice self-love?
I think definitely I grew in church, of course. I was raised in church. So having that background, I was able to just have people around me who were always positive. And so for me, that was a plus. But I also, I've learned just to do what's good for me in terms of my skincare, my hair, whatever I like, regardless of my skin color, I just do it. And when I look in the mirror, I look at me as just a beautiful, educated woman. And so I just know that I tell myself all the time that I'm great, irregardless.
Yes. And what are some ways you practice self-love, and how did you build up your self-esteem?
Well, I'll start out with this, like with self-hate. Like the things that I practiced with self-hate was I didn't like my skin complexion, so I wanted to bleach my skin. And, you know, like I remember I would go in the bathroom and I would, you know, just try to find ways to just lighten my skin color, because I just wanted to have a lighter skin. And then, like, when I saw myself in the mirror, I didn't see, you know, beauty. I didn't see that, you know, like I matched what everybody else looked like. But on the flip side, when I started to discover self-love, or more so loving myself, I had to first learn to love who I truly was, you know, like my features, accepting that for one, self-acceptance, and then it was like self-respect, and to recognize that God, He gave me, you know, this image. He gave me this, all these features, you know, like my dark skin, you know, and my skinny legs and whatever, you know, like He gave me this, and so I have to accept that. And I think from there, you know, I build it upon, you know, like, because God being who He is and He created me to be this way, then I can grow to be someone better in that, you know, like discovering that. I think that helped me to have self-love.
And what are some ways you practice self-love?
I told myself every day that not only do I love myself, God loves me. He loves me because He made me. He made me out of His image. So if I'm His image, I gotta be beautiful. Because God is beautiful. God is love. And love can't be anything but beautiful. And I teach my kids, love yourself. I love you, God loves you, and now you gotta love yourself in order for you to love somebody else. So, that's what I do every day. I tell myself, I love me. And I know that God loves me.
That's good.
So what were some ways that you were able to practice self-love on your own growing up after, like, in high school or in college or something like that?
Well, again, my dad taught us that beauty was important. I kept my hair done. I learned about makeup. I would, in the summertime, take educational classes about articulation, my performance. I was athletic, so I put a lot of attention into my abilities more so than my physical looks.
Oh, okay. So you were more focused on, like, standing apart, making the part, I'm looking good and I'll be able to speak good and stuff like that.
Correct.
So how do you navigate, knowing that you are, like, beautiful when you were grown up that way, that you didn't really have self-love or self-hate for your skin complexion? How did you navigate in those spaces then and now? And is that a difference? Growing up with the media and stuff like that, now with social media, now there's more TV and stuff out, you just been the same the whole time?
Pretty much been the same. Confidence in Lisa.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So the shift from dark skins not being in front of the media to now the media, do you feel like that impacted you at all, or do you even notice it, or do you feel like you just look to yourself or look to your family to instill that self-love in you?
Well, I guess, like I said first, my mother gave us the confidence to believe who you are and strive for the best.
So how do you navigate in the spaces that you are in now, like in work, like in church, and even at the mall or stores? Do you just be like, I'm black and I'm proud, or like, how do you?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I feel like now, 24 with 2 kids, I feel like if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't be as proud. But because I am their example, I want them to love themselves wholeheartedly. I don't want them to ever feel like they're not enough because of their skin tone. Because my oldest is my complexion, and my youngest, she's darker. And so I already know, like, my daughter, oh, she's black and I'm brown. Like, I just know that they're going to have to navigate through that. So I'm very, very proud of my skin tone now. And I do feel pretty now with my skin tone. And I want to show other kids, like, the different colors of us is beautiful. The darker, I don't want to make it like, oh, you have to be dark to be beautiful. White people are beautiful. Yellow people are beautiful. I want to give off that vibe of just people are beautiful.
Everybody's beautiful.
Yeah, like people, you're beautiful. Got one leg, you're missing a tooth. Like, you have something beautiful about
Anyone,
you.
everyone, yes.
Yeah.
From now, so since you grew up and you were like, you had self-love, you had self-esteem, do you navigate differently as an older woman within your skin color, or do you still do the same because you've always known you was beautiful?
I've always walked in, I'll say beauty, because I have a lot of self-esteem. Now, although my weight has changed, this beauty stayed the same. So I don't have to. Now, the only issue I have now is my grandchildren. That we are beautifully different shades of color. So I have to instill in the dark one that, baby, you're beautiful. She doesn't think so. So grandma's going to take care of it.
Yes, take care of that.
And my light-skinned ones are beautiful too. My brown baby.
Like, how do you navigate now in the spaces, knowing everything you know now, as your skin complexion, not holding back and just wanting to be that person, still pleasant, but like, I'm not going to be dumb, I'm not going to be stupid, and
I think now the one thing that I want to do is empower other black women. I think that is so important that we empower each other, that we lift each other up, that we speak life to each other. I like to support young black entrepreneurs. I like to be that person. I want to tell them, you don't have to pretend to be dumb. You don't have to pretend to be who you're not. We have to realize that we come from a rich culture.
What you know now, do you navigate in spaces differently, or are you just like, I'm black and I'm proud, and I know you're natural and stuff like that, so going into the workforce or whatever you're doing, how do you navigate those spaces?
So I'm black and beautiful.
Yeah.
I am one of those that just kind of stand up and show you who I am. Not my skin. Like you're going to see my skin. It's inevitable. You're going to see that I'm a darker skinned complected woman. But it's what I offer you that changes up the game, not my skin. And a lot of people I know that are, kind of intimidated by workforce and all of that, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all.
I guess, how do you navigate in this spaces knowing now that you're like, I'm beautiful, I have the self-love, I have the self-worth and things like that? It boosted up your confidence? Are you more out there in a sense, like you put yourself more out there, or is it just the same as even when you were growing up, even though you didn't have that self-love that you speak of having now?
I put myself out there in terms of speaking to other young ladies who may have experienced or may be experiencing some of the things that I've experienced as a child. Low self-esteem, no self-worth, and I didn't have anyone to tell me that I was beautiful or anything like that when I was growing up. So I try to make it a point to let every young lady know that they are beautiful, and don't let anyone else tell them anything different.
Knowing what you know now, how do you navigate in the spaces knowing that you're educated, you're beautiful, no matter if you're dark, you're light skinned?
I try to be an advocate for other females, because even in 2020, it is still an issue. I work in a high school, and so I see a lot of the battles sometimes between the females that are dark skinned and those who are light skinned. And I just try to be an advocate, of course, for all females. But when I see that it is an issue for a dark skinned female, I just let them know that it doesn't matter. And I try to tell them now that, I hate to say this, but light skin isn't in it. So, and I'm like, you're beautiful regardless. We have so many, beautiful shades of women all over the world, whatever the shade is. But I definitely try to be an advocate for our young females, because I know that society can be cruel. And so I want to advocate for them.
Yeah. How do you navigate in the spaces you are in, knowing everything you know now?
I look beyond their faults. Because I'm a Christian, I look beyond their faults, and I allow God to handle whatever situation that I'm in. I try not to think of what they are. I think of who they are and why they are doing what they do. And so in the midst of all of that, I try to navigate around, or sometimes I stop right then and I'll say, hey, I think we could say that better, or let's do it this way instead of your way. I think if we put both of our heads together, we can work this thing out better. But if you come up in contact with a person that's hard-headed, or a supervisor that's thick-headed, that was tunnel vision, wants you to their way or the highway, then you have no win. But if you come up to a person that's always willing to bend here or there, I think we as an African American society and a Caucasian society can come together on one accord, and we can change some things together. But we as African Americans can't change everything by ourselves. We have to do it together. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I see a lot of Caucasian people joining in on the outside, but what are they saying on the inside when they're away from us? That's what I think about.
Knowing that day to day, how do you navigate in those spaces?
Again, I keep myself educated. I make sure that I don't assert myself in positions or situations that I'm not prepared for. I take kindness for just that. Everybody have their opinions. I don't try to value myself based off of something someone else think. pretty much that's how I try to carry myself every day. And I do self-love and I do love for other people.
And so knowing what you know now with your self-love and knowing that your skin complexion is beautiful, how do you navigate in life now as a dark-skinned woman?
Oh, I walk through with my head up high. First of all, knowing that I'm a child of God and that, you know, I feel within myself I'm beautiful. I tell myself every day I'm beautiful. I allow myself to compliment myself when others, even when others don't. So, you know, I really feel good as a dark-skinned woman. I feel like, you know, it's nothing like us.
Okay, thank you so much. And for the last part, how do you navigate everything you know now? How do you navigate your day-to-day? How do you go on and still be like that unapologetically you person and still with like the backlash of being a dark-skinned woman?
I'm so very grateful to be a dark-skinned woman. And I think over the last 2 or 3 years is when I really just started to appreciate the skin I'm in. Again, it's crazy, but you know, black girl magic and Black Lives Matter. It just made me proud, and just also learning more about our history, where we come from, why we do the things we do, has made me more appreciative of the just the skin that I'm in.
The blacker the barrier, the sweeter the juice. I want to thank all 10 women for being a part of my documentary, and I want to thank you all for watching the documentary. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this, share with everybody, your friends, family, cousins, nieces, nephews. Tell me your favorite part. Even if you want to answer the questions, if you would like to join the conversation, hashtag a tale from a dark skin perspective on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I will shout you all out so we can keep having these conversations.